what is a connection to a person or a group that changed the trajectory of your life and career?
100% joining my first RIA. 100%. Had I not joined that, or had I not read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it would not have, I don't know of any other way where I would have stumbled across a RIA. And that literally changed the direction of my life. I have so many stories that we could talk about, the things that I learned that were so foundational to even what I do today. Important. And then if I was going to say the next one, the first time I spoke at Ricardo's event, the very first event, that event led to that private mastermind, which led to meeting other people, which led to some of my best friends, who has led me to, that led me to another mastermind, which got me on more stages, which, so probably those two single events. I mean, there's going to be a lot of small events, a lot of little things that add up. Life, they just stack up. You got to get out there, you got to meet people, you got to take swings, and you got to talk to people.
Welcome back to the Art of Connecting podcast. This is your host, Hayden Fike, and I am here today with the one and only David Olds here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. How are you doing today, David?
Good, man. You got like this great radio voice. It's like, hey, and our top 10 coming up tonight.
I just switched
on our Valentine's special.
Yeah, maybe I missed my calling being in real estate. It could have been in radio.
Well, that's what I tell people. I have a face for radio, so that would have been good for me.
I feel like I have a better face than radio, but that was maybe a little self-absorbed for me to say. But yeah, I am super thankful to be here in your office today. We're in this super cool studio you have.
Yeah, and it's a little small. I told you we're moving to a new office. The new studio is going to be 825 square foot. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, I don't know. My head is not working right today. I thought you were saying your whole office is going to be 825.
I told you the office is 14,000 square foot, but the new studio is going to be 825 if I did the math right.
So you have like a round table in there.
Well, we're actually going to set up like 4 different backgrounds so that we can do multiple types of podcasts.
That'll be so sick. I'm going to have to come in and steal the studio sometime.
Come on. We might rent out studio space too because it's so big because we can't use it all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, there you go. Another income driver for the business.
There you go.
So can you tell the audience a little bit about who you are? And I know this is very difficult because your story is very long. As we've seen several times.
I'm going to tell you the very shortest version. Started in 2002. So 22 years ago, my wife and I bought our first house. It was a foreclosure. We talked about this at the event the other day. Didn't realize what a foreclosure even was then. Like I just had a regular 9-to-5 job and had no experience in real estate investing. Bought that house, sold it, made like $50,000 2 years later. Didn't have to pay any taxes on it, which was pretty awesome. And went and bought another house, kind of wanted to do the same thing. I said, oh, well, if we can do one, make 50, how can we make 100? So we just bought a bigger, nicer house and fixed it up. And then from there, picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the most cliche thing ever, and read that book. Then at the end of the book, it talks about let's get involved in, with real estate groups, masterminds, that type of stuff. If you want to do this as a, kind of as a career, or at least, as something, more steady, right, or more predictable. So got involved in the RIA in Central Florida as a Central Florida Real Estate Investors Network, and and that was kind of how we got started. Just went to all the classes and boot camps and all the kinds of things that we possibly could.
So obviously this podcast is focusing around the subject of connecting, and some of this is going to go on to social media, I'm sure, and all different places. But one of my things that I've noticed very commonly, and I'm only, I'm 23 years old, so I haven't had like the whole, I haven't had ages in real estate, but what I have noticed in the time that I've had in it is your connections are everything. Yeah. What has your experience been with like getting started and how important those connections were, and maybe some highlights of those? Sure.
Yeah. 100% getting connected is very, very important. When, for instance, and I'm going to talk about that on like a lot of different levels. Like when I first came to Chattanooga, so I'm originally from Boston, so I talk very fast and then I was in Florida, South Florida, where it's like just a lot of Northerners supplanted down there. So I came to Chattanooga and I'm like, we're running a million miles an hour and like all these, I don't want to stereotype like Chattanooga or like the South, but it was like,
careful there.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I love it here. So, but people are like, boy, what are you talking about? What is an assignment, a contract, right? Like, I was oil and water for people here. So, first, I had to figure out how to blend in a little bit and kind of work at the pace that they work in here. No different than if like somebody from here went to New York, right? They're going to have to like speed it up, right? Because people just work at a different pace. So, but yeah, especially with wholesaling, right? If you're going to be an investor and you're going to work in one market, you have to really have great connections in that market, right? You have to become the trusted person to go to in that market. So we talked the other day about having social media and, having a presence out there and telling people what it is that you do. And that's one of the first things that's really easy. It's not hard, doesn't cost you anything. Pick up your phone. Hey guys, I'm out at this property today, 123 Main Street. We're going to walk through it. I'm going to take a look at this and see if it's something we want to buy. Hey, let's walk through and see, see whatever the pros and cons, right? Oh, great. The floors are level, whatever. Or hey, I just bought this property, or hey, I just got done talking to this buyer. And you do a great job on this. Chloe told me about it the other day, like with your story, like here's what I'm going to do today.
Yeah.
And now that she's told me, I've been watching it, and it's really cool. So connections, yeah, for a lot of different, on so many different levels, right? You need people. You need to be around people that are doing what you're doing, like at the very core, right? Because we talked about this. This is and when I say we talked about this, I did a presentation the other day that Hayden was at, but real estate can be a challenge. Not that the business is hard, but people make it hard, right? So, there are lots of obstacles that we come up against. So, I always tell people, find a tribe, right? And what that means is find a group of people that are doing what you're doing, right? Or, a local coffee meetup, or start your own real estate event like you've done an amazing job, right? But where you can be around like-minded people who are doing the same thing as you, because, there are times when, if you're doing this by yourself because you saw something on a YouTube video and you're sitting at your desk in your house and you're all by yourself and you're hitting all these obstacles, you feel like, man, I'm the only one that's having this problem. Only one in the whole world who's and it's too hard. And real estate's dumb and it doesn't work. And it's you kind of fall into that mode. But if once a week you're getting around people who, or even more often, people who are doing this business, you're like, oh, this is normal. Right. This is the parts of the business. And oh, my friend, Steve, this is how he overcame that problem, right? So kind of being around those people, and it doesn't have to be a formal mastermind, but just being around people who have a little bit of experience that you can sort of lean on those days when you're having a hard time. And that's really what the idea of a mastermind is, right? Being around like-minded people. Because, if you go to an event, and here's what I always tell people, every event you go to, right, you should stop and think before you go there, and go there with 3, max 4 problems that you have in your business. Like, be very specific, be able to write it down and go, hey, these are the 4 things. If I could solve these 4 problems, or 3 problems, or 2 problems, before I leave there, when I come back, it will drastically change my business, right? Because the idea of a mastermind or an event, right, is somebody in that room has the answer. That thing that you think is the most insurmountable thing in the world, right? Oh my God, I don't know how to set up payroll. Oh my God, I don't know how to get a DSCR loan. Oh my God, I don't have, whatever it is, right? Somebody in that room has done it, and it does it really well, right? So if you can get connected with that person, right, through somebody else, or just stand up and say, hey, I have a question. Does anybody know how to do this? Somebody will say, oh yeah, man, that's the easiest thing ever. Also, you are going to be that person for somebody else.
Absolutely.
There's going to be somebody who's like, hey man, I'd love to start my own RIA, but I don't know how. Hey, me and my friend Hayden did a great job at it, right?
And that's why in the room, when I start, I actually have this, like, in my beginning slide now, is the person that you need to meet is here tonight.
100%.
Right. And if you go in with that mindset, if you think about the person who I need to meet is here tonight. And even in mine, like, we have 80 to 125 people, which is, for Chattanooga, it's a big meetup.
That's a good meetup. That's really good.
When you consider that in other cities, you may have 500 people, right? Like, but even in the room that I have, there's still people there that have seen things that most of us can't even imagine, right? And I saw that last night, dude. I mean, I'm told you about the thing I'm dealing with right now with my flip. Like, I'm staring down the barrel of a gun, and all I have is a freaking knife. And so, but I was at the Kelly's meetup last night, and I had 5 people come rally, around me, come in like, hey, I can bring my countertop guy and save you $1,000 here. I can bring you my paint guy here, and like through that, I didn't leave feeling like bubbly inside. I wasn't like, oh, I feel great, I'm going to lose $20,000. But I left feeling like
it's manageable.
I'm not the only one who's been through this, and there are people that are here to help me.
And that's, and that's what being an entrepreneur is, right? It's you're overcoming a series of challenges constantly, one after another after another. Why anybody wants to be an entrepreneur, I don't know, because we're all sold this dream, and it's great, right? You're your own boss. You control your own schedule. You make whatever you want.
Well, Chloe controls your schedule.
Chloe does control my schedule. Legit, somebody wanted to do something with me the other day. I'm like, hey, let me introduce you to my friend Chloe, who runs my schedule because I'm not responsible enough.
You control Chloe, and Chloe controls your schedule.
I don't control Chloe, but she definitely 100%. I get in this place, I get shuttled around and coddled like a 5-year-old. Like, oh, it's you need to go do the podcast now. Here's your drink. Here, go sit down and have your drink and do your podcast. But I forgot what I was saying now. What was I saying, Chloe? What were we talking about?
We were talking about being an entrepreneur is hard.
Oh, yeah. It's 100% hard, right? Like when we all got our LLC, there was no guarantee, no piece of paper that came with that said every day is going to be perfect.
Right.
Every day is going to be a breeze. No. And this is why 90% of entrepreneurs fail, right? Because it's hard. And it's having that determination, that staying power, that grit, or whatever it is, right? That you can fight through those problems to get to the other side, right? Because as an entrepreneur, 8 days out of 10 are going to be hard. 2 days are going to be amazing, right? But 8 are going to be tough. And that's what we live for.
Yeah, it's the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, well, yeah. And we're all a little broken in the head, right? Anybody that wants to do this, right? Like, people want to do it because they want the Rolex or the Lambo or whatever bullshit that they see on Facebook or Instagram. But
then you get it and you're thinking about selling it every month. I'm like, do I sell my Rolex or do I keep it? Like, do I even? Rolex? I'm wearing my tag today. Okay. But I'm like, what
Rolex you got?
It's an Air King. Oh, so really? It's just like the base. It's the Toyota Camry Rolex.
Oh, come on now. Yep. I have two. I have a sub and I just bought a GMT. So I bought this. It's the root beer, which I've wanted forever.
Really? You like the root beer?
I do love the root beer. So I found a root beer.
Brown's kind of weird, I feel like.
Oh, no, man. It's unique because not everybody has it. So I bought this root beer, but it's vintage 1971, which was when I was born. So I felt like I was just called to buy this.
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
So
vintage watches. Mine's from 1998. And the other watch I have is from 96. Yeah. I love vintage watches. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, whenever I bought that watch when I was 19 years old, selling cars, and, I'd saved up my whole life for stuff. And now I'm like, do I sell everything that I have? It's like, that's like the entrepreneurial, every day you're just like, I've heard it gets better, and
I mean, well, I'll tell you,
the levels change.
The levels change. Yeah. And, I feel like I know a lot of successful people, and everybody has problems. Yep. Like the people that you see in real estate on Instagram, you think they're the most, everybody has bad days. Everybody's trying to make payroll. Everybody, a loan didn't come through, whatever, right? Everybody has issues.
Right.
There are days here where I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. What am I doing? Right. That's part of the business, right? Because, now you get scaled out and you've got all these people and you're just trying to get through the day.
That's what makes you a better business owner, though. Is getting through those challenges.
Well, sure. The more times that you do stuff, maybe the more calloused you get, but just the more experience you get. It's like surfing. The first time you go out there, it's going to be a complete disaster. Yeah. But after you start to feel like, oh, here's how the waves are. Okay, here's how I navigate these things, and here's how I get through. And
that didn't happen for me.
No, I would never even get on a surfboard. It would be horrendous.
I can't imagine you surfing.
No, dude. No, I want to watch the people surfing. But and then again, you have your tribe, right? When I went through a partnership breakup that was horrific, I was lucky enough to have really successful friends around the country who I could sit and just call and go, hey man, here's what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? How should I do it? Oh, you need to make sure you do these 3 things, right? Oh, my attorney, hey, make sure, you do these couple things. And then on the other side of that breakup, which is like a divorce, okay, how do I restructure things? How do I restructure my credit? How do I do payroll? How do I do all those things? And that's where it's valuable to have those connections to help you run your business, because we don't all know everything. Right. And this is a little thing with entrepreneurs and hustlers, right? And business owners is I don't know if narcissism is the right word, but we've all got this little touch of it in our brain. Yeah. And,
you saw that in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So because we're so good at something, right. And we are really, there are things you're amazing at, things that I know I am just world class at that thing. Mm-hmm. But we start to think that we're good at everything, which we are not, right? That's the part of your brain that's broken. You start thinking, oh, I'm so fucking good at this.
Right.
It's like Michael Jordan, you're the best 3-point shooter, whatever. I'm not a basketball person, but you're the best free throw, whatever it is, right? Oh, I'm going to be great at accounting. Well, no, those things don't go together.
Right. So what are you world class at?
I think I'm really great at sales and marketing, in particular sales, like disposition sales, selling, selling real estate, investment real estate. And then I used to think I was really good at transactions. I'm pretty good. Now my team is really good. Like they 100% surpassed me.
All right. So, and what you said too about like during the partnership breakup, like that is the highlight to me of the art of connecting is like, you're having a problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, who do I call? Who's been through this? And I've been asking myself that like this week. It's like, these things have happened to me. I'm like, who's been through this before? And I had somebody come to me the other day. I definitely will not say his name, but he was thinking about not telling the truth to his investors because he's about to lose like $600,000 of their money. Yeah. And he called me. It's that day he was going to lose their money. And I'm like, dude, he was like, well, I'm thinking about coming up with this thing and like flipping houses to pay them back and not telling him about it. And I was like, well, that's your prerogative. He's asking for my help with that. Like, unless you tell your investors the truth, I can't be a part of this. But I connected him to Aaron, the guy that spoke at my meetup last. Okay. Because Aaron went to prison. Like he made
that is the shit that will send you to prison.
Yeah. Right? He robbed a bank to get out of a problem he was having. And Aaron's story is incredible. If you haven't heard Aaron Muchestegi's story for the listeners, but he made that mistake. And so I wanted to connect this guy to him because I'm like, you need to talk to somebody that's made a mistake before that could potentially send them to prison, right?
The only thing you've got in business is your word and your reputation. That's it. Like I know when I did a lot of real estate here, not so much probably the last 5 years. So that's why probably a lot of investors today don't know who we are. But, like we were very, 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 very successful. Like if you took the top 3 wholesalers now today in Chattanooga, they weren't doing what we were doing back then. And I'm sure there were people who didn't like me, right? But nobody would ever say,
what?
Yeah, there's always someone who hates you, right?
Right.
But nobody
especially
would ever
when you're
say,
making money, when you're successful, there's always somebody that's gonna
nobody would ever say, hey, that guy fucked me out of this or screwed me out of money or like that's like we don't do that. Like I don't, my philosophy on stuff is, I'm not even 50-50. If I think it's 20% my fault and 80% yours, I'll be like, you know what, man, there's probably something I could have done better. I'm going to make this right.
Well, and taking the high road often can save those connections,
Yeah. It's not even the connection. It's just, I got to sleep at night. Right. You know what I mean? And I just don't ever, this is what I would tell people. I don't ever want to be at Walmart at 10 o'clock on a Friday and some old woman be, that guy there effed me out of my house or whatever, right? Screwed me or took too much, whatever, right? We can make more money. Right. Like all of us have the ability. That's the great superpower that we have, that we can go out and make more money tomorrow. Like there's no point in, lying and cheating and stealing. And, like I would give it all away today and I wouldn't want to, but if I did, I know that tomorrow I'd grab my pad of paper, jump in my car and I'd go out there driving for dollars and would find a deal tomorrow. Right. It's just, we could do that. But that's because you have time and you've learned stuff and, you have connections and nobody can take those things away from you, right? Regions of Bank of America can wipe out your account, but they can't take those things away. That's why it's so important to build that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so something you mentioned the other day when you were doing your talk, I want to kind of hit on. Sure. You mentioned that, you're friends with some of the biggest names in investing in the country, right? So how did you build those relationships? Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to name drop, but you can if you want to. But like, if you're listening to this podcast, go look at David's Instagram and see who follows him and who he follows, and you'll know who David's friends with. But like, how do you build those next level, at least in people's eyes? Remember, everyone's a person. We all put our pants on the same 100%. Way, but in people's eyes that feel like they just don't know anybody, how do you build those next level relationships? Yeah.
So this is what I mentioned earlier. So for me, I'm an incredible introvert. Like I would be just as happy, sitting in my office all day or going to an event and sitting in the back. Like even at your event, I'm just far in the back. Like I'm standing in the back and I'm trying not to be, you made me talk one time and I'm like, oh shit.
I saw that face. You're like,
I was like, oh. And Megan, of course, is egging you on to do it, right? Because I don't need the spotlight. It's not my thing. I don't crave the spotlight, even though there are times you're speaking on stage with 500 and 800 or 1,000 people. It's not. I don't love it. So I'm a real incredible introvert. But sort of the way that it happened for me is I had an ex-partner and he wanted to travel around and go to events and things. So he sort of drugged me to that. And we ended up on stage once. and we were talking about wholesaling or something. But I think what resonated with people and what caught people's attention was that, I'm certainly not the most flashy person, and I'm not a good looking kid like you, but I think I'm authentic and real, and like we've really done the things that we talk about. Right. So I think that resonates with some people, and you're not going to appeal to everybody, right? Like there are people that are going to appeal to some segments of the audience, and, others that appeal to others. Right. So, but anyways, so, I went to that kind of first event and made some friends with some of the other speakers, and, just talking to them and being real and, hey, let's talk about deals, or I don't know, just kind of that organic conversation. But I didn't go to them looking for anything, right? My goal when I go to an event is, how can I provide value? Right. So like when I do a podcast, I'll generally ask like, hey, who are you? And I should have asked you this, like, who's your audience? Right. What is it that they need to hear? Like, is it something, how can I provide some value? Right. And that's a little bit how I looked at, because I was so introverted and so nervous. Like, man, when I used to have to speak, I did Brandon King's landlord luncheon one time. Like he had asked me so many times, and finally I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I like
30 people, right?
Oh no, it was a packed.
Oh, it was big.
Chicken salad chick downtown. It was packed, 100% packed. And I stuttered for 2 days before going there. I got so nervous about going. And even when Zooms first came out, I would get so nervous. Like,
really?
Oh my goodness, yeah. But yeah, so anyways, how can I provide some value when I get on stage? Can I impact one person? Either, not that my story's special. It's not like, I wasn't facing life in prison or, spent my life in rehab. Like it's not that crazy of a story, but how is there one person I can kind of impact or help? So that's sort of how I approach that. But yeah, so one event kind of got me invited to another event. And again, how can I help? What can I do? What do you need? So I think just trying to provide value, right? That's the thing that gets you noticed, and being legitimately doing the thing that you say you're doing, right?
Right.
Because our industry is full of people who are not as truthful as they should be.
People that are, people that are putting a big show on, but it's
people exaggerate. Like I had a partner one time, and he would go on these podcasts and say, we're doing 35 deals a month. I'm like, bro, we're doing 15, and 15's amazing. Like, why do you say 35? Like that, right? Why?
It's like we're getting 35 phone calls a month. That's cool, but like that's not a deal, right?
And if you're doing 10 deals a month, you're in the top 1% anyways, right? Like I don't understand the embellishment. And there's a lot of that in our industry. A lot of people, they get excited. They're on camera. They, all of a sudden, maybe I'll just stretch the truth a little bit. And
right.
Unfortunately, that sets a bad precedent for the people who are watching, because now all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, if I'm not doing 30 deals a month, I'm not doing anything. Right. And I don't know, man. I think you can make a great life doing 5 deals a month. You can live an amazing
doing
life.
1 deal a month.
Yeah. Like 20,000 would change anybody's life.
If you do deals right, you could do 1 a month.
Yeah. You don't have to.
Great. Yeah.
This is why we talked, what did I say the other day about scaling up?
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Hayden asked me to come, Shane, and you were co-hosting it, come talk about scaling up. And the first thing I said is, hey, here's what we're talking about.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. It's probably not going to be worth it.
I don't know. I feel like when you exit your company, you'll probably be saying a different thing.
Yeah.
Because you're building something that you can exit.
Yeah.
And that's what scale allows you for, right? Is exitability.
Yeah. If you have the right kind of business.
Right.
Again, we were talking before we jumped on, like wholesaling, is it exitable? In some cases, but most no. Most people don't have the processes built out. So, to exit a company, right? The first test is, can you leave your company for a month and it still operate? If you can, that means you have processes and people in place that it will continue to operate. Right. Then you probably have something that's sellable, right? Because now I can take the operator out and somebody else can just buy that business and it will continue, because you're buying cash flow. That's what you're buying, right? So can
systems.
Yeah. Can I buy something and not have to go, if it's the muffin shop, can I buy that muffin shop and not have to go in there and mix the dough every day, right? Does somebody do that? So that's sort of the way to look at a wholesale company. And very, very few companies are built out that way. Like, 1 in 10,000 are built that way. I have a friend that just exited one. But even exiting it, are you going to get a big cash payout? No, you're probably going to sell it with some type of financing.
Right.
So wholesale companies, they're great. They're a great way to get started, generate cash. take that cash and put it into, into rentals or notes or whatever you want to do.
So you mentioned something earlier that I want to kind of ask you about, and you mentioned like mastermind groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what kind of mastermind groups have you joined, and
Lots of them.
which one do you think was the best for you in your opinion? Obviously, this is very subjective.
Yeah, super broad. I will tell you, I've been a part of, I've been in Boardroom Mastermind with Ken Clothier. We're currently a sponsor for Investor Fuel with Mike Hambright. I've been invited to Collective Genius. I just haven't gone yet. I'm in the Family Mastermind, which is just all the providers and coaches and guru people, whatever. So those are kind of the biggest ones that I've been involved in. But honestly, the best mastermind that I ever went to was the first one. And it was in San Antonio. A friend of mine put it on. And it was kind of during the end of COVID. So he said, hey, I'm going to invite like 15 or 20 of my best people I can come up with. I'm like, well, I don't know why you invited me, but I appreciate that. And everybody paid $1,000, basically enough to cover the room. Mm-hmm. And we went out to some really nice dinners. And we were all in this huge U-shaped, everybody was like one person to a table because we all had to be separated. But anyways, we were in this big ballroom, 20 of us, maybe 25 total. And everybody got up and did an hour presentation on what was working best in their business. And then after each one, there was like a 30, 45 minute, conversation where we could ask questions and talk about it. And that was the best mastermind that I've ever been to. And it was a true mastermind. The rest are just, they're events where somebody's speaking and they call it a mastermind. It's really not. So yeah, of all the ones that I went to, my friends Charles and Michael put that on with HBHS in San Antonio. And that was the best one that I've ever done. I learned the most. It was kind of the most intimate. We could really talk about our businesses. Yeah, that was really great. So I would encourage people, you don't have to pay $30,000 a year to be in a mastermind. You can start your own. You could literally call up 10 friends and say, hey, we're going to, why don't we all just go someplace cool? Let's go to, I don't know, out on the coast in South Carolina. Let's rent a house and let's really have a mastermind.
Right.
But you have to have a facilitator, somebody who's going to run it and keep everybody on track, tell people how to show up and what to be prepared for and do that type of stuff. But again, go to that with 2 or 3 problems in my business and say, hey, here are the things, right? Because a good mastermind is you're going to present,
right,
and then you're going to have an ask,
right? You share your problems, and then you see who else has gone through it and can help with perspective.
Yep. And then a couple people in that room will have the answer for you or be able to connect you with somebody who does have the answer. So those are fantastic. I think, I've always gotten the most value out of those when I've been invited to them. So for that specific example, what do you remember what you're going through in your business and what those people helped you get through? Yeah, honestly, a lot of public speaking was the one thing that I came out of there thinking, or I was so mad with myself because I got so nervous being up there. I came out and said, I'm going to get over this. I'm going to next year. This was 2021. So I'm in 2022, I'm going to speak on 20 stages and I'm going to do 50 Zooms, whatever. Right. Cause I was so nervous about it. And yeah, a lot of guys in that room were professional speakers. So they really helped me with that. That was a big event for me because that sort of kickstarted a lot of, got me on stage at a couple of different events and, and one thing kind of led to another. And then I got into this other mastermind and that mastermind has opened a bunch of doors. So yeah, it's, you never know what's the event that's going to be that sort of catapults and starts opening those doors for you. Other than that, yeah, I definitely had some actionable things that I took away from there and brought back to my business on Monday, change the way that we did our business. So prior to that, you weren't really a big public speaker. I hate public speaking. I still hate public speaking. Which is so funny to me. So I remember in Houston, this was really the first time we actually kind of got to talk to each other at Richie's? Ricardo's. Yeah. And I do. One of the people at that small mastermind. Okay, yeah, I remember that dinner. You had been going all day. I'd seen you from the morning. You were you got there at 9 a.m. with the booth, and you spoke, and you were just Hayden, I don't want to talk anymore. I can't do it anymore. You get to the end of the day, and I'm eat my Cheesecake Factory. Yeah, and whatever we were doing. And I was I totally understand that. Yeah. I get it. I was at this event last year in Dallas, and it was September, so it was my birthday. And I'm with the owner of Investor Lift, and he's like, "Oh, we're going to take a bunch of people out. We're going to go get a nice dinner and have wine and cigars, and it'll be your birthday. We'll kind of hang out." So we're out on this like huge patio in Dallas. We're hanging out, and this kid comes over and sits right next to me and wants to start hitting me with questions at like 10:30 at night. I'm like, man, can we just do this tomorrow? Can we just like, man, I'm done.
You're like, I'll answer you.
Just, and that's, when you go to these events, like the speakers, I get it. You want to hang out with the speakers and you want to talk to them, and man, like, it gets exhausting.
Yeah. Well, especially because you're an introvert.
I am. I know people laugh when I tell them that, but I truly am. I mean, I have the ability to turn it on and do stuff like this, but yeah, the rest of the time I just want to be in there doing my work and plugging away.
So I want to talk with you about that specifically because I've had a lot of people see what I do and see how I connect with people and that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, you're just super extroverted, so of course you can do that, right? Like, but public speaking doesn't come naturally to me. I was I was scared just like everyone else when I first started, and even still, I mean, like most of the time when I start my meetup, I don't have time to be nervous because I'm like rushing to get the projector to work or the Chick-fil-A is running late or whatever. And I'm like, it's time to start. Yeah. But like, there's so many people that come to me and they're like, but I'm introverted, Hayden. I can't do that. So what would you say to that person?
Well, again, what is, do you have something of value that you can impact other people on, right? So that has to be your focus. Like when I'm speaking and it's a really big room, like 800, 900 people, I'm picking a couple of people out and I'm talking to them, right? Here are my experiences. Here's the things that have happened, right? I'll ask some questions. How many of you guys have ever wholesaled a deal before? Right. And how many of you have done 5 deals, right? Great. So I sort of will poll the audience to see what the experience level is. And then I will talk to them. I'll talk to them, I'll tell them, hey, here's my story. I know it's not the worst story, but I get it, man. I had to overcome these types of things. So I'm speaking to them and just trying to add value, right? Like you have to come to to these things from that, I think, perspective, right? How can I help somebody in this room? Somebody, hopefully I will help. And then it feels great afterwards for someone to go, oh my God, that was exactly what I needed to hear.
Right. For somebody that may feel like they don't have any value to bring, right? So say 19-year-old Hayden that has not bought a real estate deal, just got done selling cars and has no money. What does that person bring of value to someone in your shoes?
So maybe you don't have real estate value, right? So I'm going to tell you this story. This is my problem too, as I tell stories to give context. So when I first started, we did bandit signs. We put out a ton of bandit signs. Sorry, city of Chattanooga.
You're the reason why it's illegal now.
Well, it's always been illegal. But,
you and Thomas, both.
Me and the city attorney, we know each other, or we used to know each other. But so what happens when a local little group comes to town is they would say, hey, go out and call the bandit signs. Those are wholesalers, and go see if you can come to their office and pick their brain or take them to lunch or do all those things, right? So cool. So in the old days, I would have somebody in my office, 2 people a month, right? They would come in, they would sit there, I would spend some time with them, and I don't really have time to do that anymore. But, I would say, okay, great. Like you want some type of mentorship or something. Cool. What are you willing to do? Anything you want. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to make you wash my car, but hey, do this.
You should have made him wash your car.
I know. I don't know if I've ever made somebody wash my car, but I said, okay, great. Do this. You got a pad of paper? Yep. Got a pen? Yep. Great. Cool. I want you to get in your car and I want you to go over to East Lake and I want you to drive every street and write down the addresses of 100 houses that are boarded up, tall grass, look like they're vacant, whatever. Just look like they're in need of help. Bring those back. And when you bring those back, we'll go to the next step. I have had 100 people do this. It's easily 100 people over all the years. And I've ever had 3 people ever come back. Yeah. So one of them did a couple deals. One did 1 deal. You know who the third person was? Justin Huggins.
Wow. And
one of the most successful investors in town.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for people listening to this that are not in Chattanooga, Justin, him and his wife own a title company,
title company.
Like the largest title company in Chattanooga, I think. I mean,
plus have an enormous portfolio,
at least for investors,
far bigger than any portfolio that I've got.
Yeah, and so and they're young. They're what?
Early 30s.
Early 30s, yeah. And I've talked about this several times with people that want to network with people that they see have a bunch of followers or they post content that they like, and I'm like, bring value to them. Like DM that person and say, hey, I watched your video with Ryan Jackson in the limo. And
Ryan's awesome. Have you ever met him?
I just texted him today.
Oh, yeah. I'll connect you with him.
I know we met in Houston.
Okay. Cool.
He told me to go get a bunch of FedEx envelopes and drop them on the auction. I keep envelopes and a pad in my car still from
that's really who he is. He's a maniac. So how do you provide value? Well, you may not be able to provide real estate value, but you may go to an event organizer and say, hey, how can I help? Can I put out chairs? Can I put out tables?
Right.
Can I hand out flyers? What can I do to help? Right. And this is what I used to do at my RIA. Like also because I got to go to these $97 weekend classes I went for free 20 years ago, right? Which now would be maybe 300. But like, this was what I did. I tried to provide value. So it may not be real estate. It may be, hey dude, if you will let me hang around for a little bit, I'll go get your dry cleaning. I'll go walk your dogs. I will wash your car. So if that's all you've got, that's what you've got, right? But now you start being around, same thing we talked about earlier, right? Getting around people. Like when you're around people who are doing, when we were wholesaling here, 20 or 25 deals a month at the end, like now that's invaluable education. You pay tens of thousands of dollars for that.
Absolutely.
My private coaching clients that I take on are $25,000 a year. Like the other thing you can do is find a way to provide me that kind of value, like where it's some kind of trade, because I don't want you to take me to lunch. I don't have time to go to lunch.
Right.
Like
a $10 lunch is not a value to you.
If you took me to Ruth Chris, dude, and spent $300, I'd be, it's cool. And I get this will get hate, but like, I need to be at my business with my 20 employees and my team growing my multi-million-dollar business, right? So you just do get to a point where you don't have time to let people come in and sit on your couch, right? Like I don't do that. Like,
well, and getting your brain picked is one of the most annoying things in the world. Whenever someone texts me, "Can I pick your brain?" Like it's so hard for me to even text them back because I'm like, and this isn't like an ego thing. It's just like I've had you would just get drained forever. Yeah, I send people. I have a link. It's $249 an hour. That's really cheap. And I do a couple of those a month. I just start doing $50 an hour, and I'll be all right. I don't even. This one of my biggest reels ever was this, which just blew up because I don't even want the $249. And when I agreed to it, I'm like, oh, once I get on it, it's fine. Like I want to help, but I've got to stop everything I'm doing in my day to go come and do this. Right. And usually it's the most basic of questions. Yes. Like, dude, how do I buy real estate? Yeah. Like I have a free course on my website. Like go get the free course, watch that, then we can have a better conversation. So I get how that sounds to people. Like I really do. But, my first obligation is to the 20 people that are on my team. Like those are the people who have houses and cars and boyfriends and girlfriends, hopefully not both, and dogs and VAs, and, it's my obligation is to them first. So if you're pulling me out of that, I just can't do that. So that's why I used to have a meetup here at the office once a month where like I'm dedicating 3 hours. It's time. Time does become your most precious resource. The more advanced you get and the more businesses you have, right? Like we have rental companies and the coaching and consulting company and the transactions company, and we're opening 2 title companies, and then we have an oil and gas company. Like there's just, this is why I don't manage my schedule. I let Chloe do it because I will screw it up and overbook stuff. So if someone wanted to bring value today, what would that look like? Honestly, for me, it'd be kind of tough. It just would be because this isn't like in my wholesaling business, it would have been very easy. Hey, I'll bring you leads. Great. Right. Bring me leads. Come in. Now we'll sit and talk about it. I'll help you review them, and maybe we'll joint venture on that deal. Right. That would be very easy. Today for me, just because of the nature of our business, that would be a little bit tougher. Unless you want to be a personal assistant, right? Unless you want to meal prep and get laundry and do those kinds of things. I mean, a way that I think of that someone could bring you value is like, and this is like applicable to you, but if you're listening to this and you think of someone who's like David that has companies, think about who their client is. And if you know of anyone that does what they do and simply make the introduction, like as a business owner, you would be you would take your time to 100%. Talk to someone who's doing 10 deals a month, right? Yeah, because like that's a worthwhile spend of your time. Right. 100%. So when you're going and starting a conversation with somebody, how do you start the conversation to see what value you can bring? What does that look like? Well, that's something I'm terrible at. Okay. Like I'm a terrible go up and introduce myself to somebody that I don't know. Like even people I want to meet, like, hey, my name's David. And like, I'm terrible at that.
I've never been good at it. Even when I was a salesman, when I was selling lumber and building materials, I was never like a rainmaker. Like I'm not a great cold caller or door knocker. That's not, I'm honestly 9 times out of 10, I will sit and wait for someone to come to me because again, I'm just an introverted person. So, like even at your event, I'm not like roaming around. I'm like standing with the 2 people that I know and kind of doing my thing. But when I do it, it's, hey, I want to come up and compliment them on something like, hey, I just saw your talk. That was really great. That was really impactful. I thought you made some really great points. And then whatever whatever the goal of that conversation is, right? Hey, I'd love to sit down and chat with you sometime and, see how maybe we could do some stuff together. I think I could do, like I could provide some value, right?
Right.
Hey, I've got a great following. I'd love to, if you want to jump on Instagram Live sometime, I'd love to do that or whatever value it is that I can provide. But that is something I struggle with. I love to be connected with people, right? Because once I'm connected, like, oh, now I can kind of do that. And that's a me thing. I don't know that that's everybody. That's just me and kind of how I've operated. Even when I was selling doors and windows, like if somebody introduced me to the purchasing manager, oh, great. Like now I'm good. Like I'm a great account manager. I'm not a great account opener. Yeah, I'm not a great account opener. You know what I mean? So that's just sort of the way I am.
Which is really fascinating because you chose like your big rocket into business was wholesaling, arguably, right? Yep. And that business requires you have to be the door beater, right?
Well, it's why. There's 2 ways you can do your marketing: inbound and outbound, right? Outbound is me cold calling, door knocking, doing that stuff. I always chose marketing methods that drew people to me.
Okay.
Right. So you would call my phone. Hey, this is David. Hi, I saw your sign. About we buy houses. Oh, no, great.
So you played in your strengths on that.
Yeah, I knew.
Was that intentional?
I was subconscious. Probably was it was a subconscious thing, right? Well, I knew what I didn't like, right? And that's for people who are new and want to get involved in like real estate. There's lots of ways to do real estate, right? You can be the short sale guy, the land development guy, the wholesale guy, the rehab guy, the landlord, right? Or gal, whatever.
Don't be the rehab guy. That guy's a schmuck.
It's always harder. It is always harder than you think, right?
Don't be the rehab guy.
So lots of ways to do real estate. I tell people it's like being the doctor, right? You can be the eye doctor, the nose doctor, the tongue doctor, the ear doctor, the butt doctor, whatever, right? Like you could be, so find something that you really enjoy. So, and play to that strength. Right. So for me,
be the butt doctor,
right? Get right in there. I did not want to go out and door knock, right? I did because I don't love that. It gives me huge anxiety and I'm not comfortable doing it. So I think you're right. Yeah, I did find a way to play into my strengths. So yeah, that once they call you, great. Oh, fantastic. Tell me a little bit about what's going on. Right. And then I can slide into that conversation. So yeah, I never really thought about that, but yeah, it probably was something playing to the thing that made me most comfortable.
I think being introverted is a secret superpower that most people don't even really think about because a lot of introverts that I know are like, but I'm introverted. I can't do this. And it's like being introverted can be a superpower because what you're talking about, you want people to be drawn into you, right? Yeah. Like there's something about an introverted person that's listens more than they talk, right? Like a lot of,
that's why they make good salespeople.
And that's why introverts make way more money. Cause if you get in a room with me and you ask me, what do you think about this product? I'm gonna be like, the best product in the world, blah, 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 blah. And I'll talk forever. And I'm like, oh, I like it. What do you think about it? Yeah. And that's where sales are made, right? That's where your money is made when you ask, when you're just a mirror. Yeah. And that's at least what I've heard.
Now I would tell you, I love to be surrounded by extroverts. Like I love the energy, right?
Right.
Chloe and I love people around me that have high, because I do know who I am, and I know that I'm very low energy. I'm very flat. I don't get real excited. I don't get real mad. And if I do, it's very short. It's very short dips. So I do love to be around high energy people. But no, you're absolutely right. I've heard that over and over and over again that introverts make far better salespeople.
Absolutely.
Because they're not so.
And you can be a great connector as an introvert because if you're better at listening, you can listen to what people's problems are.
Right.
And then you can say, oh, I know David. David does transaction closing, or I know Justin. Justin does, they do title stuff with Key. Yeah. And through doing that, getting and this has been my experience, like if you can get one person to the person they need to know,
they're both in debt, not indebted to you, but now your stock with those people is raised up, and now you're a person of influence.
And they're grateful to you. And when you call them and you have a problem, they're going to be a lot more likely to answer the phone.
Right. And what's interesting too is, being a connector and an influencer, I guess, in that way, is it's not about the money. Like you're not going to monetize every time you connect to people. You're not going to get some piece of every deal, but things will come back to you. Just the law of reciprocity, it works. These things will come back to you, and you will get opportunities that you never would have gotten before.
Right.
Like you connected me with what was your buddy's name? Shane.
Cool. So,
if you'd have said, hey, I want $500 for connecting you. Okay, cool. I'd have probably given you the $500, but we certainly wouldn't do this, and we wouldn't do other things. And you know what I mean? But which is same with, that's how I look at it. Oh, you might connect you with somebody? Great. Who can I connect you with? If I'm good enough friends with them because there's not everybody that I can do that with, right? Like somebody asked me to connect them with a friend of mine. I'm like, bro, I'm like his best friend. I can't get him on the phone. I can't just cold text him and connect you to, right? I wouldn't give away some people you just have to understand, like they don't want their cell number given out.
When people ask me that though, I ask why, right?
Yeah.
Well, say I don't know Ryan Pineda. Like say I want to be connected to Ryan Pineda. Like why?
What value are you going to bring? Because as the person connecting them, you have to protect the other person.
Exactly.
Right. Like I might text Ryan and be like, hey, Ryan, would you be open to talking to my buddy Hayden? He wants to talk. And I may not get an answer because that's the answer.
Right.
I might be like, oh yeah, man, I'd love to talk to him.
Or maybe like I'm super busy right now, but in 2 months, yes.
Yeah.
But like you as a connector, you're exactly right. Like it's kind of a fine line I have to play because there's certain people I know that their phone gets blown up. Like my mentor, he's $150 million guy, right? Yeah. So like he has 15 LLCs and like businesses that he runs. And so it's like, if you want to get in touch with my mentor, it's like, what do you need from him? Like, how can I tell him? And when I call him, I try, and sometimes he'll just randomly call me. He's like, well, shoot to shit, like,
because he's got time.
Yeah.
But again, time is their most precious resource, right? That's why, for me, you go to, if you want to set something up, very rarely do I personally put something on my calendar. They go to a calendar link, or I'm like, hey, call Chloe and she handles the schedule. If you want me to speak someplace, cool. She's in charge of that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's a great lesson. Like if you want to get on somebody's calendar or someone that knows somebody else, just ahead of the time, instead of just being like, texting me and be like, Hayden, I listened to your podcast with David. Can you put us in a text together? Be like, Hayden, I listened to your podcast with David. I love that he talked about this, that, and the other. And I have a question about this. Then I can be like, all right, cool. I would, and then I would say, hey, David, this person has a question about this. And then that makes it a valuable use of your time because you know what you need to answer. It's not just like, oh, let's get on the call for 45 minutes.
Because what happens is you connect me with somebody that it's just something silly. The next time you do it, I'm going to be like, man, that's why I always tell people, like, hit me up on Instagram. I try a couple times a week to go through all the messages, even the requests, and sort through and try to see if there's something. And I really do try to answer everybody. But I don't give out my cell number. There are people on these things that give out their cell number. I'm like, dude,
I couldn't believe
my phone,
it.
You've heard it just over here and beeps continuously. So.
One of my friends was like a big dude and he gave out his phone number. I was like, are you sure you want to do that?
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. I'm like, you're wild, man. But
I hear people do it on mine every so often. I'm like, no, don't.
I give out my Instagram now too. I'm the same way.
I'm like, if you want me, connect with me through Instagram.
Yeah.
Just because it's a little bit of a buffer, and like there are like 5 people I will stop a meeting for to answer a phone. One of them's my mother, right? Like there's very few people that I can do that, and it just can't come all the way through. And honestly, if you call me and it's not, I don't have you stored, the chances of me picking it up are pretty low.
With my mentor, whenever I connect him with somebody now, what I do is I send their contact with notes in there and what company they work with before I do it. Yeah. Because there's certain people that it's like, and Ted gets like 100 phone calls a day, right? Like of non-listed numbers of people trying to buy one of his properties. Or trying to, whatever.
That's what I get too.
Yeah. And so it's like, he just doesn't answer them. And I totally understand it. When I'm in his position one day, I probably won't either.
I just cleared I had like 30 messages yesterday and I just went through. I'm like, delete. Just, again, I get it. Like somebody not in that position looks at it and goes, that's the douchiest, bougie, whatever bullshit ever that I've ever heard. And I'm like, okay, I 100% I get that. But I've only got so much time in the day, right?
Like we talked about earlier, you can't multitask. Like your brain's got to be doing one thing at a time. And you have 20 people whose food on the table relies on what you do, right? And so like at the end of the day, your focus needs to be on that, and that's admirable.
That's one thing I was listening to Alex Hormozy the other day, who is somebody I would love to meet. I've got some friends that know him, but he said, 34-year-old me, if I could tell 24-year-old me something, one thing is be more protective of your time, because there are a lot of people who want to steal your time, not nefariously, but they just want to say hi or take a picture, And if you're in an event, that's cool. There's time for that. But when you're in business mode, you're in business mode. And
right.
And again, I get it. It sounds terrible, but it's just what it is.
And I think it goes back to time blocking too. This is how you be a better business person. Is like doing this stuff, like being on the podcast. Like we're not making money right now, right? Like this is not a money-making activity for either one of us, right?
We have a lot of money invested in cameras and lights and everything here.
I spend $300, $400 a month on having my podcast, right? Like it's a net negative.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, we do this because it's hopefully bringing value to the people who are listening. Yeah. That's the biggest thing. That's why I do it. But B is, for people to be able to see us, that we are doing business together, right? Like to see what we're doing and to learn from us, like that stuff, like you get rewarded. I feel like for doing things. I think
so. So podcasts, once somebody told me, hey, you should have a podcast because you're going to get to be on and talk to people who you really want to talk to. Like I enjoy, talking to you and sitting down and chatting. I get to learn about like different people and how they do their business, right? It's very interesting. The way we started this, when we were talking about getting out there in social media and stuff, like it's certainly a credibility thing, right? Like, if you Google search my name, stuff comes up, right? Like you would be like, clearly this guy does real estate.
Exactly.
There's no question. Oh, I can put this guy in the property appraiser's website and stuff comes up, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of credibility to it. Social media is a weird thing, though.
You were like, I never thought it. What did you say? You said, I never thought at 50 I'd be like having emojis in my life.
Emojis would be that big of a part of my life. Yeah, people love that when I say that. But it's social media is a strange thing when you're at an event and you just see people watching you and they want to come over and talk to you. I was at this one private after party at this big house in Houston, and this kid came up and he was like 19, 18. He was so drunk. And he's like, man, I just wanted to come over and talk to you. I'm like, why? Why? I'm like, okay. He's like, I watch all your videos. I'm like, oh, thank you. I try to be a good receiver. I used to say like, oh, you're the one. But now I'm trying to be better about it. I'm like, oh, thank you, man. That's very nice. Like, tell me about what you got going on. What's happening? What could I do?
Personally, I love it. I mean,
it
I don't know if it's an ego driver for me.
It's both. For an introvert, it's both at the same time, which is like this real conflicting thing. Like it's embarrassing. Like I'll be walking through, like I remember recently I was going into an event and it was early. It was like the day before the event. And I went to like a store and I was walking back to the hotel and I'm walking back around the front in Phoenix. And I saw this kid standing there and I saw soon he like locked eyes with me. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. You're like, he knows.
I'm like, shit. He knows. So I'm trying to get in and I saw him take a step forward. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? Like, and he wanted to sit and talk.
Yeah.
It's flattering.
Imagine how Alex Hormozy feels.
I know. Like, I'm not important. Like, imagine like those guys, right? Like,
I only have
Grant Cardone
I only have 1,200 followers, and it happens to me. I don't like walk through Walmart. People are like, oh, are you hating? No, but like when I go to my events and stuff, I'll have like 4 or 5 people come up and be like, hey, I watch your stuff or I listen to your podcast. Yeah,
that's always the funniest.
I don't get that one that much yet. So
really?
Maybe I need to do better.
Yeah. What I always tell people is tag me on Instagram and I'll follow you back.
Yeah, that's another hack too. If you want to become like a connector and get more followers, tag important and like well followed people on Instagram. Be like,
don't tag them for nothing though, because I see that and I'm like,
if you have their book or if you're at an event, you see them speaking.
Yeah.
Like take a picture of them speaking, doing something cool. Like I had Shane with his freaking Hublot watch. No, it wasn't Hublot. It was what's Richard Mill or whatever, $200,000. I've got him like standing on the table like with a whiteboard behind him doing stuff, and it's on his website now, right?
Oh, cool.
And so like you take those pictures, do those things, tag those people. I got like 10 followers in one day because I tagged Shane in my story, right? And he has 200,000 followers.
Yeah. What's important to those guys? Well, everybody who's on social media is looking for more followers, or, we're always looking for more reach and, to be able to get in front of people, because that's how we do the things we do. So I mean, 100%. Don't tag people in frivolous, sunglasses ads.
Well, if you're reading their book, like I tagged, I think Dan Martell in one, and
the greatest book ever.
Yeah, he tagged me on his Instagram.
Really?
Yeah, and so I was also on Bluefishing. My mentor recommended.
You want that?
I'll never turn down a good connection. Yeah, let's go.
I'm not connected. Somebody gave it to me.
Perfect.
I also have Kiyosaki's number too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I know so many people that know him. That's a crazy thing too. When you dive into an industry, the world gets really small.
Yeah.
You are truly like 1 to 2 people away. Like with David, I'm probably one person away from a lot of big people. But then there's also like, I have a private money course with Jillian Sidoti, who was Grant's former attorney, right?
Yeah.
So she knows everyone because she raised $300 million for him.
Yeah,
right?
I'm one person away from Grant, but I don't know him. I've never met him.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's really on my radar. I think what he's done is fascinating, but he wouldn't impact me, or I don't know what I could do for him or he could do for me.
Yeah. I mean, he does a lot of business.
He does a lot of business. He does.
Well, we're coming up on our time here, so I want to ask you a final question.
Sure.
And this is what I ask like every guest is, what is a connection to a person or a group that changed the trajectory of your life and career?
100% joining my first RIA.
Okay.
100%. Had I not joined that, or had I not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it would not have, I don't know of any other way where I would have stumbled across a RIA. I would have probably been that guy who just rehabbed a house and then rehabbed another house, and maybe read some books about it. But I don't know that I would have found a RIA, a real estate investment association. And that literally changed the direction